Chair, I yield back.
Mr. Kim.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you to the two of you for coming on out here and talking to us about this. General, I wanted to start with you. Over the last couple of months, I've been engaged with a lot of ambassadors and other interlocutors from partner nations of ours in the Indo-Pacific, talking about, what are some areas of cooperation we can focus on. I think coalition building is so critical, especially given the challenges we face there. And one thing that kind of keeps coming up over and over and over again is their concerns about their capabilities when it comes to cybersecurity and whether or not that is at the level that is needed. This is something that I feel like would not only help them in terms of their capabilities and their ability to prevent vulnerabilities, but also in terms of our ability to work with them and engage, whether that's intel sharing or other capacities there. But you see, major partners of ours like Japan having significant challenges across their society when it comes to this, a lot of the ASEAN nations and others. So I guess I just wanted to ask you if you would support, or if you think it would be a good thing for us to do to try to increase our engagement, our efforts to be able to lift up their baseline of cybersecurity capabilities in the Indo-Pacific. Is that something that you think would be valuable here?
Congressman, I certainly do think it would be of value, and we're doing that right now. I just returned from an 11-day tour of many nations, to include several of them in the Indo-Pacific region. And you're right, the number one topic that they talk about is how do we work together with cybersecurity? This is the way that we're doing it at U.S. Cyber Command. First of all, through a series of exercises. So CyberFlag is our major exercise that takes place every summer. This summer we'll have over 30 nations from around the world to participate with us. Secondly is through bilateral arrangements where we go and work with a force to ensure that they develop the capacity and capability to defend their own networks. And the last piece, which is, I think, just a incredible success story for the Department of Defense, is a state partnership program that the National Guard runs that provides a continuous ability for us within the department to have relationships, to have exercises, to have an exchange of ideas with a nation. The state partnership program that was run by California and is run by California with Ukraine is a great example of this. This is the platform that we've been using.
Do you feel like there's, that's really good to hear about the different facets in which this is happening. Do you think that there's room to scale this up and room to be able to increase this capability and this kind of engagement?
I do, and I'm seeing it already through our operations with Hunt Forward, where we've had a number of different nations within the Pacific have asked us, and the department has agreed for us to deploy to those areas to do that.
Dr. Plum, what are your thoughts on this right now?
Congressman, fully agree with your concerns and with General Nakasoni's statements. We are working on this, and your point is exactly right, which is that the more we can build the capacity of our allies and partners to defend themselves, then the more capacity we have to get after the adversary under the theory of fixed number of resources, even if that number keeps going up. So it's a strategic advantage to us to be able to do this. And the other part is, and this is really important, sir, it doesn't just unlock cyber cooperation. It unlocks all sorts of other parts of deeper cooperation, the foundation of which is decent cybersecurity processes so that information can be protected so we can share more information with those parties. Absolutely essential.
I just think this could be such a good win-win. It could really help us build just these deeper lateral, horizontal connections while also sort of hardening some of the vulnerabilities that we face in that region, which we know are immense there. And General, I appreciate that you talked about some of those different facets because, that reserve components, specifically our National Guard members, they built incredible cyber capabilities, in my, and one of those Guard programs, that state partnership program, that's something that's been incredibly fruitful. We have the 140th Air National Guard Cyber Operations Squadron at Joint Base McGuire-Dix Lakehurst in my district. And, looking at their ability to be able to partner with these nations, it seems like that's essential. So I know you kind of raised that earlier, but it sounds like that's something as well that we can continue to push on in terms of thinking about how to surge up these types of efforts. Is that right?
Congressman, the Minister of Defense from Albania came to visit U.S. Cyber Command. And one of the first things that he did was to recognize the New Jersey National Guard for the work that was done on a Hunt Forward operation. He told us that. He knew the captain and the lieutenant colonel that was leading those teams to help his nation as they came under cyber attack. This is a really good example of building partnerships in a way that we should be doing in the future.
Well, I look forward to working with you on that. Thank you.
Mr. Gates.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's good to see you again, General Nakasone. I remember back in the 90s when President Bill Clinton said that we were at risk of a space arms race. And our country put a bit of a pause on some of our space work. And the governing theory was if we paused, we could slow down and make space more of a safe domain and not a contested domain. And the reality we know as we sit here now is while we may have paused during some years in the 90s, our adversaries did not. Russia, China, Iran, they all became more capable in this regard. And so I just wanted to get your initial take on a similar call for a pause regarding AI right now. We've seen some of the largest tech leaders, including Elon Musk, sign this letter saying that the advancement of AI is such that we ought to take a pause and determine how to frame those capabilities. What's your assessment of whether or not America's adversaries would follow the lead of principally U.S. tech companies?
My sense, Congressman, is that artificial intelligence and machine learning is something that is resident today and is something that our adversaries are going to continue to look to exploit and moving forward.
Do you worry that if U.S. companies take a pause, that could constrain some of the capability development that you testified earlier is so necessary in getting people interested and engaged in AI?
So, Congressman, I guess I really haven't thought about that. That's a piece of policy that I'm sure will be discussed in the future. But what I am focused on is how do we build a bigger pool of people that have this capability and capacity to work it? How do we engage with academic institutions to encourage young people to study AI and machine learning? How do we get them interested in governance service? How do we continue to utilize this in the future?
I fully share that vision, and I think the future of the country literally may depend on it. But, and I am not an expert in AI. I'm just starting to use and understand the technology intentionally. And it seems to me, if you've got some of the big tech influencers in our country saying, whoa, pause, don't expand commercial vectors in AI, that could be counterproductive to the goals you just stated about enhanced engagement in our country. Do you share that concern?
So again, Congressman, my focus right now is being able to develop the talent and the techniques and the tradecraft as we look forward to utilizing this, this important advantage that our nation has.
And as you look at the AI domain right now, we would certainly have to concede there are some areas where China's ahead, right?
I think right now, as we take a look at the AI and machine learning domain, what we need to be focused on is how do we look at it in a way that we can use it responsibly, not only for our national defense, but also for our economy. At U.S. Cyber Command, we are very, very interested in the use of large language models and the ability
Right, but who's ahead? My question is, who's ahead right now?
The United States is ahead.
You think we're ahead of China in AI
I do.
currently? And what's your basis for that belief?
Again, discussions with experts, but I think that this is a tenuous place that we're at as well. This is being developed in the United States. This is being developed by a series of entrepreneurs and those that are working it. But this isn't. We should not take this for granted that this is going to be the way of in the future. And so we need to continue to invest in it and work it and continue to utilize it.
Thank you. I yield back.
Thank you. We don't have the classified room until 10 a.m. It's not my intention to filibuster until 10 a.m., but I do want to entertain a second round of questions if any members have one. I will start with myself. General Nakasone, I want you to imagine you're talking to, let's say, my grandma, who's a great lady. She's extremely smart, but it's fair to say she's more concerned about her great-granddaughters than she is about China and cyber. In terms that she could understand, explain the threat that the Chinese Communist Party poses in cyberspace.
Mrs. Gallagher, good morning. I'm General Nakasone.
Technically, Virginia Justice is her name.
Mrs. Justice, good morning. I'm General Nakasone. As we think about our nation, one of the things that I think that we should consider is the fact that our nation is a nation that has been able to have a strong economy and a strong national defense. Our strong economy is based upon the fact that we're able to develop ideas and bring those ideas to a number of different people and be able to have business thrive on that. It's based on this idea of, an idea being able to be patented and then being able to be sold to a broader government. What happens if a foreign nation takes those secrets as they're being developed, doesn't have to do the research, doesn't have to pay for it, in fact can get it to the marketplace before we can? That affects our economy and that affects our jobs. That's what we're seeing today in many of our industries, where the Chinese have had ability to steal our intellectual property, to repurpose it, and then to bring it to the market at a much lower cost than we can. The other thing I would say, Mrs. Justice, is the fact that national security is important in the sense of being able to take information and secure it. One of the powers of our nation is the fact that we may not have the largest Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marines, but we have the best Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marines because we can really do one thing, and that's fuse information and operations. We have to be able to secure that information. And when a foreign power like China can get into our networks, our data, and our weapon systems, that puts our nation at risk.
Now I'm going to ask you to do something even more difficult. I want you to hop into the DeLorean, and I want you to go into the future. And I want you to talk to my daughter, who's currently 2.5, and consider her as a high school senior. And I want you to sort of explain two things to her. One, what is your pitch for her serving the country in some sort of cyber capacity, going to work for NSA or Cybercom? Make the pitch to her. And two, what is the basic set of cyber hygiene practices that she and all her friends in high school should follow?
Ms. Gallagher, good morning. I'd like to talk to you a little bit about the future.
And indeed, it will be Miss Gallagher for a long time, not Mrs.
The future is one where I would tell you that the jobs that you see today may not exist in the jobs in the future. The areas that our nation is going to produce work in the future will likely be tied to our ability to work in this domain of cyberspace, a domain that you know very well from operating on your smartphone. 2 decades ago, the smartphones didn't even exist, and yet today they are accounting for a good portion of our economy. So as you think about the future, one of the things that will not change is the importance of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And as you look to the future, being able to specialize in one of those areas opens up a broad opportunity for you to think about jobs that may not exist today. But being able to think about jobs that don't exist today also means the fact that you have to be able to be responsible to operate in the domain of cyberspace today. And being able to do that is understanding the fact that what you say on your phone or text on your phone or share images on your phone sometimes are shared not only with the person that receives them, but other people that have access to it. And being able to understand that securing that information is very important. The second piece is that you should also understand that what you say in cyberspace perhaps may not be only viewed and heard by one person. So be very careful about what you record and what you say. And I think the last piece is understanding that what you see on the internet and what you read today may or may not be actually true. And so being a discerning viewer of what you're reading and what you're seeing is part of being a responsible person. Now, I would say the last piece of my advice is thinking about government service. There is honor in government service. As your father has served, I would offer that he would probably communicate to you that the ability to give back to your nation is something that will stay with you for the rest of your life.
Thank you. The good news is, in this future, TikTok no longer exists because we will have taken bipartisan action against it. Perhaps we're in the second Khan administration in this future, but if anyone, do you have a second round of questions?
Do we have time?
Yeah, of course.
Terrific. Dr. Plum and General Nakasone, what role have tech companies played in Ukraine? I know there's Starlink. Are there other examples of tech companies that have played a role in Ukraine that you're aware of?
Congressman, I think that you've highlighted one of the major lessons learned from Russia-Ukraine is the power of the private sector. Whether or not it's been Starlink being able to provide satellite communications, whether or not it's been a series of different U.S. companies that have been able to provide cybersecurity support, such as Microsoft and Palo Alto and others, this is an ability for us to scale. That's the lesson learned, is that bringing the private sector is the opportunity for us to get to not tens of thousands, it's tens of millions, if not billions of people with the information that's readily important and assisting Ukraine today.
So I would just add, thanks, sir. One of the issues, and Mr. Keating actually spoke to it earlier about surprise or lessons. I think it's been clear that Ukraine has been much more resilient from a cybersecurity standpoint than I think Russia might have anticipated. A lot of that is due to help from private sector. One way of making yourself resilient is to make sure that your data can be protected, and one way to do that is to move it to the cloud. And so individual attacks have not had perhaps the effect that Russia had anticipated.
Appreciate it. The reason I ask is it's become somewhat fashionable on both the far left and far right to be criticizing Silicon Valley, and I share some of the criticisms of privacy and issues about protecting people from kids from social media. But I also represent the area, and I fundamentally believe that it's going to be critical in our national security. I'm excited that Chairman Gallagher is in his other role as chairman. He's chairman of every committee around here. Chairman of the China Committee is leading a delegation to Silicon Valley and will be engaging with some of these tech leaders. If you could just, my final question here is talk about how you see the importance of that collaboration and what you'd like to see for a 21st century national security strategy.
I think the collaboration is essential. I do think that there is one piece that we could use your help with, which is communicating that technology, like any other system, can be used for good or for bad, and making sure that as our brilliant men and women working in the tech corridor in Silicon Valley, for example, understand that there are also downsides to technology and try to build in safeguards as they go. I think that would benefit us all going forward.
We, Congressman, I would just say that as we think about the future here, this is where we need to have the partnerships that are so strong. Not only the partnerships of the technology that's being developed, but the talent that exists there. I'm very interested for young people and even mid-career people to come and join our force for a period of time. This is perhaps something that is a unique part of U.S. Cyber Command, that you would come in at the mid-career, but that's the type of talent that we need. That's the type of engineering know-how that would really assist us. And so, again, I think it's both the technology and the talent that exists there that we want to make sure is clearly partnered with us in the future.
Thank you.
Thank the ranking member. I'm very excited to visit his district, and I might need your advice on how to fit in. If there's any extra sort of like hoodies or Allbirds or ironic T-shirts I could wear. Yes, that's right. Appreciate it. Mr. Luttrell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. When asked a question from my district, my constituents ask me questions like, is our military the most formidable force on the planet? It's easy for me to say yes, even when they talk about how aggressive Russia is and how large China is. I say, well, we're an all-volunteer force and we're terrifying. But I can quantify that by showing them the Special Forces community or a handful of Marines. And General, you said that the U.S. is leading in the cyber space. Now, I think it was 16 or 17 when we had the 5th fastest computer in the world, Titan, over at one of the national laboratories. You familiar with that?
I am.
Okay, and so then right in that same time frame, we fired up Summit. And if I remember correctly, Summit went from petaflop to exascale computing speeds, which pushed us into the next phase of evolution when it comes to our processing abilities, moving us closer to AI, ML, or quantum, which I think one of the most brilliant men in the world told me 15 years ago. We said in 15 years we're going to be at quantum computing, and they said it again the day that I was standing there, right? So my question is, which this may be a classified setting question, is how do I see? How do you confirm to me? Because you said you talked to the subject matter experts in the space, but what does that mean? What are they telling you? Because to me, if China, given the time frame from when we fired up Summit, should have on board or online another computer that would have trumped us and pushed us back some. So the amount of money they're spending in that space compared to us would make me think that they're ahead of us. So can you give me some amplifying information, or do we need to wait till 10?
If I might provide a bit of information, then take also a portion of this in the closed classified spending money doesn't necessarily mean that you're the best in what you do, and being able to integrate that kind of capability is what really matters. So being able to take, you know, the intelligence, integrate it with a maneuver force to have an outcome is where I clearly see the United States has the lead. And it is, you know, not only in the fact that we can do it in the air, on the ground, but also in the sea. Being able to bring disparate parts of information together that mine for data, that provide the key piece of information to a soldier, sailor, airman, marine on the point is what we do so well, Congressman. And that's the difference in terms of what our nation can do.
Yeah, but that's our military presenting a defensive posture where the Chinese government's reaching out and touching my civilians. And that's a problem. Does that make sense?
Again, I think perhaps more of this we can discuss in closed session if you'd like.
Fair enough. I yield back, sir.
Any other members? Okay, with that, we will adjourn the open session and we'll reconvene the classified portion upstairs. Subcommittee.